Have you ever wondered where sleep comes from? Not dreams, not bedtime, not the feeling of closing your eyes after a long day, but sleep itself. The ancient Greeks believed that sleep was a living thing, a gift carried through the darkness by a gentle god named Hypnos. And they said that far beyond the places known to ordinary people, hidden behind mountains older than memory, there existed a valley where night never fully ended, a valley where the air was soft, where no birds sang too loudly, where every breeze seemed to move in slow motion. And deep within that valley stood the cave of sleep. Tonight, if you listen carefully, we will follow an old, forgotten path toward that mysterious place, a place few travelers ever found, and even fewer remembered leaving. So settle comfortably beneath your blankets, let your breathing slow, and imagine that somewhere, far beyond the noise of the waking world, a small lantern is glowing beside an ancient road, a road waiting just for you. Our story begins on a quiet evening when the last golden light of sunset was fading behind distant hills. The world was growing still. Shops were closing, windows were dimming, and one by one, the stars were appearing in the sky. Most people were preparing for sleep, but not everyone. There was once a traveler who had spent years collecting unusual stories, stories of hidden forests, stories of forgotten islands, stories of mysterious places marked only on ancient maps. Yet among all those tales, one story fascinated the traveler more than any other. It was the story of Hypnos, the god of sleep, the keeper of peaceful nights, the silent ruler of dreams. Old storytellers spoke of his valley in whispers. They claimed that somewhere beyond the lands of mortals flowed the River Lethe, a gentle river whose waters carried forgetfulness. Not a frightened forgetfulness, not the loss of important things, but a soft releasing of worries. A place where heavy thoughts drifted away like leaves upon water. Along its banks grew endless fields of poppies, red flowers swaying beneath silver moonlight. And beyond those fields waited the cave of sleep itself, a cave so quiet that even echoes fell asleep before reaching its walls. Most people dismissed the tale as myth, but the traveler could never forget it. Night after night, the story returned. A valley, a river, a cave, a god. And eventually, curiosity became stronger than comfort. So one evening, carrying only a lantern and a small satchel, the travelers stepped onto an old road that led toward the western mountains, toward the place where, according to legend, sleep was born. The journey had begun. And somewhere ahead, hidden beneath a sky filled with stars, the River Lethe was already whispering over smooth pebbles, waiting for someone to listen. The old road stretched westward beneath a sky painted with deep shades of blue. The traveler walked slowly, lantern in hand, while the last traces of daylight disappeared behind the distant hills. Night did not arrive all at once. Instead, it settled gently over the world, like a soft blanket being carefully laid across the land. The air felt cooler now. The sounds of the day were fading. A distant dog barked once. A final bird called from a treetop. Then even those sounds became quiet. The traveler continued forward. The road was ancient, so ancient, in fact, that no one seemed to remember who had first built it. Smooth stones lined its edges. Wild grasses swayed beside it. Every now and then, tiny white flowers appeared among the weeds, glowing softly in the lantern's warm light. The traveler noticed something unusual. The farther the road traveled into the countryside, the calmer everything felt. It was not merely silence, it was something deeper. A peaceful stillness, as though the world itself had decided to rest. Above, the stars were multiplying. 1 became 10. 10 became hundreds. Soon the entire sky seemed filled with gentle points of silver light. The traveler stopped for a moment and looked upward. The stars appeared brighter than they had ever seemed before. Perhaps they always shone this way. Perhaps people simply forgot to notice. A cool breeze drifted across the fields. It carried the scent of earth, grass, and distant water. Somewhere ahead, a stream might be flowing, or perhaps it was only the wind wandering through the hills. Either way, the sound was soothing. The traveler continued walking. Hours seemed to pass without hurry. The road curved between rolling meadows. Moonlight spread across the landscape like pale silk. Every blade of grass shimmered softly beneath its glow. Now and then, rabbits appeared near the roadside. They paused, observed the traveler, then quietly hopped away into the darkness. Nothing seemed afraid here. Even the night felt welcoming. Eventually, the traveler noticed a small stone marker standing beside the path. Its surface was worn smooth by countless years. Ancient letters had been carved into it long ago. Most were impossible to read. Only a few remained visible. The traveler lifted the lantern closer. 3 words could still be seen. Toward peaceful sleep. A gentle smile appeared on the traveler's face. The stories might be true after all. The road continued beyond the marker. Soon the fields began to change. Tall grasses gave way to silver wildflowers. Their petals reflected the moonlight so brightly that they appeared almost luminous. The traveler had never seen flowers quite like them. They covered entire hillsides, a sea of pale blossoms stretching toward the horizon. The breeze moved through them like waves upon an ocean. For a long time, the traveler simply watched. The sight was strangely comforting. The flowers did not rush. The wind did not rush. The moon did not rush. Everything moved with quiet patience, as if the land itself understood something that busy people often forgot, that there was no need to hurry. The traveler resumed walking. Soon another sound emerged from the darkness. At first it was barely noticeable. A soft ringing, delicate and distant, almost like tiny bells. The traveler listened carefully. The sound drifted through the night air. Ring. Ring. Yet no church stood nearby. No village could be seen. The mysterious music seemed to come from nowhere at all, and somehow it felt familiar, comforting, sleepy. The traveler followed the road. The bell-like sounds continued for several minutes before gradually fading away. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, they were gone. The night became quiet once more. Ahead, the hills grew taller. Their slopes rose gently beneath the moonlight. Beyond them lay unknown lands, and somewhere beyond those lands, according to the old stories, waited the hidden valley of Hypnos. The traveler felt neither fear nor doubt, only curiosity, and a growing sense of wonder. The road climbed slowly upward. The lantern's light flickered softly. Crickets sang from hidden places among the grass. The moon sailed peacefully overhead. At last, near midnight, the traveler reached the top of a hill. There, the road widened into a small resting place. A single stone bench overlooked the countryside below. The traveler sat down. The lantern rested beside the bench. For several moments, there was only silence. Comfortable silence. The kind that asks nothing. The kind that allows thoughts to drift like clouds. Far away, mist gathered across the valleys. Silver moonlight rested upon rivers. Dark forests slept beneath blankets of shadow. The entire world seemed peaceful. The traveler closed their eyes for just a moment, and in that moment, something unusual happened. A voice seemed to drift upon the breeze, so soft it was almost impossible to hear. Not a command, not a warning, merely a whisper. A whisper carried from somewhere far ahead. Come closer. The traveler opened their eyes. The wind had become still. The whisper was gone. Yet somehow the traveler knew it had been real. The journey was leading somewhere. Toward something ancient, something gentle, something hidden from the waking world. The lantern was lifted once more. The road continued down the far side of the hill, and waiting below, beneath the moonlit horizon, stood a forest unlike any the traveler had ever seen. A forest where the leaves never rustled loudly. A forest where even the shadow seemed sleepy. A forest that marked the beginning of the path toward Hypnos' valley. And without hesitation, the traveler stepped forward into the night, toward the forest of quiet leaves.
The road descended gently from the hill and led toward the forest. From a distance, the trees appeared wrapped in silver mist. Their branches stretched gracefully beneath the moonlight, creating soft patterns against the star-filled sky. The travelers slowed their pace. There was something unusual about this place. Not strange, not frightening, simply different. The world seemed quieter here, as though every sound had been softened by an invisible hand. The traveler stepped beneath the first arching branches. Immediately, the air changed. The cool breeze became gentler. The scent of wildflowers faded, replaced by the fresh fragrance of moss, bark, and damp earth. Moonlight filtered through countless leaves overhead. Instead of sharp beams, it arrived in soft patches that danced across the forest floor.
The old road continued between the trees. Smooth roots curled beside it. Ferns covered the ground in thick green blankets. Tiny white mushrooms glowed faintly among the shadows. Everything seemed peaceful. Everything seemed at rest. The traveler continued deeper into the forest. Above, the leaves moved softly, yet they made almost no sound. Most forests whispered constantly. Branches creaked, leaves rustled, animals scurried through the undergrowth. But here, the sounds were muted. The trees swayed gently without complaint. The leaves brushed against one another like feathers. The entire forest seemed to breathe slowly, in and out.
The traveler found themselves matching that rhythm, each breath becoming calmer than the last. The lantern's flame flickered quietly, its golden light mixed with the silver glow of the moon. Together they illuminated a path that seemed almost magical. As the traveler walked, they began noticing curious things. Some trees had trunks wider than cottages, others twisted into elegant shapes, their branches looping like ribbons. One tree appeared to cradle an enormous stone between its roots. Another had grown around an ancient archway that no longer led anywhere. The traveler wondered how old this forest might be. Hundreds of years? Thousands? Perhaps even older. The stories said that places touched by Hypnos often existed outside ordinary time. A season could last a day, or a century. No one knew for certain. The traveler smiled at the thought. For once, there was no need to know. No need to solve every mystery. The forest was content simply to be itself. After some time, a new sound emerged. Very faint, very distant. It resembled humming, a soft melody drifting through the trees. The traveler stopped, listened. The humming continued. Gentle, peaceful, almost like a lullaby. Yet no words accompanied it, only a melody. The sort of tune someone might sing to a child beneath a blanket of stars. The traveler followed the sound. The road curved between ancient oaks. The humming grew slightly louder. Soon a clearing appeared ahead. Moonlight poured into the open space like liquid silver. At its center stood a small pond. Its surface was perfectly still. Not a ripple disturbed the water. The traveler approached carefully. Looking down, they expected to see their reflection. Instead, they saw something else. Memories. Small, glowing images drifting beneath the surface. A child chasing butterflies. An old woman reading beside a window. Friends laughing around a campfire. A family sharing a meal. Countless peaceful moments floated through the water like leaves upon a stream. The traveler watched quietly. None of the memories belonged to them. Yet each one carried a feeling of comfort, warmth, safety, rest. The humming seemed to emerge from the pond itself, as though the memories were singing together, not with voices, but with emotions. A gentle celebration of peaceful moments. The travelers sat beside the pond for a while. No one hurried them onward. The stars reflected in the water. The trees watched silently. The melody drifted through the clearing. And for a brief time, nothing else mattered. Eventually, the humming began to fade. One by one, the glowing memories dissolved into silver light. The pond became still once more. The traveler rose to their feet. The journey was not finished. Far from it. Yet somehow they felt lighter now, as though a small burden they had been carrying had quietly slipped away. The road awaited. Beyond the clearing, it wound deeper into the forest. The traveler continued. The trees grew taller. The shadows grew softer. The air seemed filled with tiny floating lights. At first, they resembled fireflies. But as one drifted closer, the traveler realized it was something different. A tiny, glowing feather. No larger than a leaf. It floated lazily through the air. Then another appeared. And another. Soon hundreds of glowing feathers drifted among the trees. Some shone pale gold. Others glowed silver. A few carried faint hints of blue. The traveler watched them with wonder. They moved slowly, almost dreamily, never rushing, never colliding. Each one seemed to know exactly where it belonged. One feather landed gently on the traveler's shoulder. It felt warm, comforting, like the touch of a soft blanket on a cool night. For a moment, the traveler felt unexpectedly sleepy. Not exhausted, not weary, simply relaxed. The kind of drowsiness that arrives when rain taps softly against a window. The traveler smiled and continued onward. The feather lifted once more and drifted away. Hours seemed to pass, or perhaps only minutes. Time behaved strangely in the forest of quiet leaves. The traveler no longer cared to measure it. Ahead, the trees slowly began to thin. Moonlight became brighter. The road widened. A faint silver glow shimmered beyond the forest. The traveler paused at the final line of trees. Beyond them stretched a breathtaking landscape, a vast valley covered in gentle mist, silver rivers winding through moonlit fields, distant hills rolling beneath the stars, and far away, almost hidden by the glow of the horizon, stood a mountain unlike any other. Its peak seemed wrapped in clouds of midnight blue. Its slopes shimmered faintly beneath the moon. And somewhere within that mountain, according to legend, rested the Cave of Sleep, the home of Hypnos. The traveler stared in wonder. The journey was leading exactly where the old stories promised. Yet before reaching the valley itself, another meeting awaited, for scattered across the moonlit meadow below moved small figures cloaked in starlight, the gentle night spirits, silent guardians of the path to sleep, and they were waiting.
The traveler stood at the edge of the forest and gazed across the moonlit valley. The sight seemed almost unreal. Mist drifted slowly above the meadows. Silver rivers wound through the landscape like ribbons of light. The stars shone so brightly overhead that the entire valley appeared to glow from within. And there, moving quietly among the grasses, were the figures the traveler had noticed from afar, the gentle night spirits. At first, they appeared no larger than children. Yet, as the traveler watched, it became clear that they were something altogether different. They moved with unusual grace. Their cloaks shimmered like starlight reflected upon calm water. Their footsteps made no sound. Where they passed, the grass seemed to bow gently and then rise again. The traveler stepped forward. The road descended from the forest and entered the meadow. Immediately, the cool scent of night-blooming flowers filled the air. The grasses swayed softly around the path. The valley felt peaceful beyond words. One of the spirits noticed the traveler. It turned slowly. Its face was hidden beneath a hood woven from silver threads. Yet somehow the traveler sensed kindness, warmth, welcome. The spirit lifted one hand, not in warning, not in command, simply in greeting. The traveler returned the gesture. To their surprise, several more spirits emerged from the mist. They gathered quietly beside the road. There were perhaps a dozen of them, or perhaps more. The drifting mist made it impossible to count. For a few moments, no one spoke. The valley itself seemed to prefer silence. Then the first spirit tilted its head slightly, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like distant wind moving through tall grass. "Welcome, traveler." The words were soft, almost musical. The traveler felt no fear, only curiosity. "Who are you?" they asked. The spirit seemed to smile beneath its hood. "We are guides." "Guides to where?" "To rest." The answer hung gently in the air. The traveler considered it. It felt like the sort of answer one might hear in a dream. Simple, yet somehow meaningful. The spirit turned and began walking along the road. The others followed. After a moment's hesitation, the traveler joined them. Together they moved through the moonlit meadow. The grasses whispered around their ankles. Tiny silver flowers dotted the landscape. Above them, countless stars watched quietly. For some time, no one spoke.
The silence felt comfortable. The traveler found that they did not wish to break it. Eventually, they noticed something unusual. The spirits carried lanterns, small lanterns made from pale crystal. Inside each one floated a gentle blue light. The flames did not flicker. They glowed steadily, peacefully.
The traveler glanced toward the nearest spirit. "What are those lights?" The spirit lowered its lantern slightly. The blue glow illuminated the surrounding grass. "Dream seeds." The traveler blinked. "Dream seeds?" The spirit nodded. Every night across the world, people drift into sleep. Before dreams can begin, small seeds of possibility must be planted. The traveler looked more closely at the lantern. Tiny sparks floated within the blue flame. Each spark seemed to contain miniature worlds: mountains, clouds, oceans, castles, forests, entire adventures hidden inside pinpoints of light. The travelers stared in amazement. "Those become dreams?" "Some do," replied the spirit. "Others become ideas, stories, songs, or memories waiting to be discovered." The traveler smiled. It was a comforting thought. Perhaps somewhere, at this very moment, dream seeds were floating towards sleeping people across the world. Children, parents, grandparents, travelers, friends, everyone receiving small gifts from the night. The procession continued. As they walked, the valley slowly revealed its wonders. Glowing streams crossed the meadow. Moonflowers opened their silver petals. Gentle breezes carried the scent of lavender and poppies. Everything seemed designed to invite peace. The traveler felt more relaxed with every step. At length, they reached a small hill. The spirits paused at its summit. Below stretched another part of the valley. And what the travelers saw there took their breath away. Thousands of floating lights drifted above the landscape. Golden, silver, blue, lavender. They moved lazily through the air like luminous leaves. Some rose toward the stars, others descended toward the earth. The entire valley shimmered with motion. "What are they?" asked the traveler. The first spirit gazed across the glowing scene. "Yawns." The traveler laughed softly. "Yawns?" Every peaceful yawn released by a sleepy soul eventually finds its way here. The traveler could hardly believe it. Yet the floating lights certainly looked gentle enough. They drifted slowly through the valley, spreading calm wherever they passed. One golden light floated near. As it passed the traveler, a wave of comfort washed over them. The feeling was familiar, like curling beneath a warm blanket on a cold evening, like hearing rain against a rooftop, like knowing there was nowhere else you needed to be. The traveler watched the light drift away. Perhaps the spirit was right. Perhaps it truly had once been a yawn. The group continued onward. The valley grew quieter as they traveled. The stars seemed larger, the mist thicker, the world softer. Eventually, the traveler noticed something far ahead. A river. Its waters shone like liquid moonlight. The current moved slowly, gracefully. The sound reached them before the sight became clear. A gentle murmur, water flowing over smooth pebbles. The sound was unlike any river the traveler had heard before. It seemed to carry whispers, not words exactly, more like fragments of distant thoughts. The spirits stopped. Several lowered their lanterns respectfully. The first spirit turned toward the traveler. "We have reached the edge of the River Lethe." The traveler looked ahead. The famous river from the old stories. The river of forgetfulness.
the river that flowed through the valley of sleep. Moonlight danced upon its surface. Silver reeds lined its banks. Beyond it stretched vast fields covered with countless flowers. Poppies. Endless poppies. Red petals glowing beneath the stars. The sight seemed to continue forever. The travelers stood silently. At last, the journey was bringing them closer to the heart of Hypnos' realm. The spirits stepped aside. Their task for now was complete. The first spirit raised its lantern one final time. Its gentle voice drifted through the night. Listen carefully to the river. Why? Asked the traveler. The spirit's hood turned toward the flowing water. Because everyone carries something they no longer need. The traveler looked at the shimmering current. The river whispered softly over its pebbles. Patiently. Gently. As though it had been waiting for countless ages. Waiting to share its ancient secret. And beneath the endless stars, the traveler took their first steps toward the banks of Lethe, the river of forgetfulness.
The traveler walked slowly toward the river. Behind them, the gentle night spirits remained upon the hill, their lanterns glowing softly through the silver mist. Ahead, the River Lethe wound through the valley like a ribbon of moonlight. Its waters moved without hurry, without struggle, without noise. The traveler had seen mighty rivers before, rivers that roared through mountains, rivers that crashed against rocks and carved valleys through the earth. But Lethe was different. It did not rush. It did not roar. It whispered. The sound was delicate and soothing. Water gliding over smooth pebbles, tiny currents weaving together, gentle ripples brushing against the shore. The traveler approached the bank and paused. The river seemed almost luminous. Silver light shimmered beneath its surface. Not reflected light, light from within, as though countless stars had settled into the water long ago. The traveler knelt beside the river. The pebbles lining the shore were smooth and polished. Some glowed faintly blue. Others shone pale gold. Each seemed carefully placed by invisible hands. The traveler reached out and dipped their fingertips into the current. The water felt cool, refreshing, perfectly calm. And then something unexpected happened. A memory surfaced. Not a dramatic memory, not an important one, simply a small worry, a forgotten moment of embarrassment, a mistake made years ago. The sort of memory that occasionally returns late at night for no reason at all. The traveler watched it appear within their thoughts. Then, just as gently, it drifted away, like a leaf floating downstream. Gone. Not erased, not destroyed, simply released. The traveler blinked in surprise. The river continued murmuring softly. Its current seemed to say, "You do not need to carry everything." The traveler sat quietly beside the shore. The words had not truly been spoken, yet somehow the message felt clear. The river flowed on. Its voice remained soft, patient, kind. Nearby, silver reeds swayed in the breeze. Tiny moonlit insects drifted above the water. The valley seemed suspended between waking and dreaming. For a long time, the traveler simply listened. The gentle movement of the current, the whisper of reeds, the distant song of unseen night creatures. Every sound blended together into a peaceful melody. Eventually, the traveler noticed something moving within the river. At first, it appeared to be floating leaves, but as they drifted closer, their shapes became clearer. Little boats, hundreds of them. Tiny boats crafted from silver leaves. Each carried a single glowing light. The traveler watched in fascination. The boats floated silently upon the current. Some moved quickly, others drifted slowly. Yet none became trapped or lost. All followed the river's winding path.
The travelers spotted one approaching the shore. Inside the small boat rested a single feather, soft and white. It glowed faintly beneath the moonlight. The traveler looked around. No one else seemed present, only the river. The boat touched the pebbled shore, gently, as though inviting attention. The traveler lifted the feather. It felt weightless, warm, comforting. The moment it touched their hand, a feeling spread through them. A memory, not of worry, but of peace. A quiet evening beside a window. Rain tapping softly against the glass. A warm drink. A comfortable chair. The feeling lasted only a moment. Then it faded, leaving behind calm. The traveler smiled. Perhaps the river carried more than forgetfulness. Perhaps it also carried reminders. Reminders of peaceful moments. Moments people often overlooked while chasing busy days. The traveler placed the feather back into the boat. The little vessel drifted away, joining the others. Soon it disappeared into the silver current. The river bent gently through the valley. The road followed beside it. The traveler rose and continued onward. As they walked, the landscape became increasingly beautiful. Fields stretched toward the horizon. The grass shimmered beneath moonlight. Clusters of white flowers bloomed along the shoreline. And everywhere, the river whispered. Its voice never grew louder, never demanded attention. It simply remained present, steady, comforting, like an old friend walking beside you. Hours seemed to pass, or perhaps only moments. Time behaved differently here. The traveler had stopped trying to measure it. At one point, they noticed stone benches scattered along the riverbank. Each was carved from pale marble. Each faced the water. None appeared weathered. Though they looked ancient, they seemed untouched by age. The traveler sat upon one of them. Across the river stood a willow tree unlike any they had ever seen. Its branches swept toward the water. Silver leaves shimmered gently. As the breeze moved through them, they produced the faintest music, a soft chiming sound, almost like distant bells. The traveler listened. The melody blended perfectly with the river's whispering current. Together, they created a song so peaceful that it seemed impossible to feel anxious while hearing it. The traveler leaned back. Above them, the stars glowed brilliantly. The moon floated low upon the horizon. The valley seemed endless, a place where nothing needed fixing, nothing needed solving, nothing needed proving. Only being, only breathing, only resting. The traveler closed their eyes for a moment. The river continued speaking, not with words, but with feelings. Feelings of release, feelings of gentleness, feelings of letting go. The traveler realized something. Throughout life, people gathered many things. Responsibilities, plans, regrets, expectations, memories. Some were precious. Others were heavy. Yet few people ever paused to set those burdens down. The River Lethe offered exactly that. Not forgetting who you were. Not losing what mattered. Simply loosening your grip on things that no longer served you. The realization felt strangely comforting. The traveler opened their eyes. The river glowed beneath the moon. Its current wound toward the heart of the valley, toward the place where Hypnos dwelled, toward the cave of sleep itself. Then the traveler noticed something new. a fragrance drifting through the air. Sweet, earthy, gentle. A scent carried by the breeze from somewhere ahead. The traveler recognized it immediately. Poppies. The famous poppy fields from the ancient stories. The scent grew stronger with every passing moment. Soon, faint patches of crimson became visible beyond the river's next bend. The traveler felt excitement stir within them. Not the sharp excitement of adventure, but the quiet anticipation of approaching something beautiful. The road curved gently. The river followed. The fragrance deepened. And then, as the traveler rounded the bend, the landscape opened wide. The sight that greeted them was breathtaking. Fields. Endless fields. Millions upon millions of poppies stretching beneath the moonlight. Red petals swaying like waves upon a sleeping sea. The flowers seemed to glow softly beneath the stars, their crimson colors rich and deep against the silver landscape. The travelers stopped in wonder. The stories had not exaggerated. If anything, they had fallen short. For no tale could truly capture the beauty of the poppy fields of Hypnos. And somewhere beyond those endless blossoms, hidden within the heart of the valley, the cave of sleep awaited, patient as ever. Beneath the stars, beyond the flowers, beyond the whispering river, waiting for those willing to follow the path, all the way to its end.
The traveler stepped slowly away from the riverbank. The moment their feet touched the edge of the poppy fields, the world seemed to change its rhythm. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but softly, like a breath becoming slower. The River Lethe continued its gentle whisper behind them, winding away through the valley. Ahead, the poppies stretched endlessly beneath the moonlight. Red upon red, layer upon layer, a living sea of crimson petals swaying in a silent breeze. The traveler walked forward. Each step caused the flowers to move like waves parting around a boat. The air grew warmer here. Not hot, not heavy, just gently warm, comforting in a way that invited rest. A sweet, earthy fragrance filled everything. The scent of petals, of soil, of something ancient and peaceful. The traveler noticed that sound itself felt different in the fields. Footsteps made no noise. The rustling of fabric became softer. Even breathing seemed quieter, as if the air absorbed it gently. The poppies moved in slow motion around the traveler. Their petals shimmered faintly beneath the moon. Some appeared almost translucent, as though they held starlight within them. The traveler paused and looked closely at one bloom. Inside its petals, tiny flickers of light moved, like dreams waiting to be born. A breeze passed through the field, and the entire landscape responded. The poppies swayed together in perfect harmony. It was not chaos, it was choreography, as though the field was breathing in unison. In and out. In and out. The traveler began walking again. Time felt softer here, less defined. Minutes might have passed, or perhaps entire hours dissolved quietly into the night. The farther they went, the more the world felt like a dream that had not yet fully formed. And yet everything remained clear, beautifully clear. The traveler soon noticed small paths weaving through the poppies, narrow trails barely visible unless one looked closely. Each path seemed to lead in a different direction, some toward distant hills, some toward clusters of glowing flowers, some toward places hidden in mist. The traveler chose one and followed it. As they walked, they saw small creatures moving among the flowers. Not animals in the usual sense. They were softer, more like drifting shapes made of light and shadow. They moved gently between the stems,
never disturbing the blossoms. One of them paused near the traveler. It resembled a tiny deer, but made entirely of faint golden light. It tilted its head slightly, then slowly faded into the poppies, as if dissolving into the field itself. The traveler watched quietly. Nothing here seemed to fear anything. Everything belonged. Everything flowed. Further along the path, the traveler began to hear something new. A faint rhythm. Not music exactly, but something close. A soft pulse moving through the field, like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, calm. The traveler placed a hand over their chest. Their own heartbeat seemed to align with it, as if the entire valley shared a simple, peaceful rhythm. The poppies responded to the unseen pulse. Their movement became more uniform, more synchronized. The field looked alive in a way that was almost sacred. The traveler continued onward. At one point, they noticed that the path was slightly elevated, a gentle rise in the landscape. From this height, they could see farther into the valley, and what they saw made them stop. Beyond the endless fields, the land gradually rose into soft rolling hills, and beyond those hills stood a mountain. Not harsh or jagged like ordinary mountains. This one was different. It appeared smooth in some places, cloud-wrapped in others. Its surface shimmered faintly beneath the moonlight, as if dusted with stardust. And somewhere within that mountain, hidden from ordinary sight, lay the Cave of Sleep. The traveler felt a quiet sense of awe. The journey was nearing its center, but still the poppy fields held more to reveal. As the traveler descended the small rise, they entered a deeper section of the field. Here the poppies were denser, their petals larger, their colors richer, the scent stronger, the air softer. It felt almost like walking through a living lullaby. The traveler noticed something unusual happening in the air above the flowers. Tiny glowing particles drifted upward. They rose slowly, spiraling gently into the sky. Each one looked like a fragment of light, like something shed from the poppies themselves. The traveler watched them float upward. "What are those?" they whispered. A soft voice seemed to answer, not from a person, but from the field itself. "Sleep dust." The traveler blinked. The particles continued rising. "Where do they go?" they asked. The field did not reply with words this time. Instead, the answer appeared in feeling, a sense of distant homes, warm beds, quiet rooms, closed eyes, peaceful breaths. The traveler understood without fully understanding. The sleep dust drifted upward into the night sky, spreading gently across the world beyond the valley, reaching those who were ready to rest. The traveler smiled faintly. It was a comforting thought that even here in this hidden valley, something flowed outward to others, a gift shared without being seen. The traveler continued walking. Soon the poppies began to part ahead, revealing a wider clearing. In the center stood a single ancient stone archway. It was covered in vines and glowing moss. Beyond it, the field continued. But something about the arch felt like a threshold, a boundary between places. The traveler approached it slowly. On the stone, faint carvings could be seen. Symbols older than language. Shapes that suggested sleep, rest, dreams. And beneath them, a single word carved long ago. Entrance. The traveler placed a hand on the stone. It felt warm, alive, as if the archway recognized those who came seeking rest rather than answers. The poppies around it swayed gently. The air grew still. The traveler stepped through. And the moment they did, the world beyond seemed even quieter than before. The field stretched further than sight could reach. The mountain grew closer. And somewhere ahead, beyond all petals and silence, the Cave of Sleep waited, not as a place of endings, but as a place of beginning rest. And the traveler continued forward.
Beyond the ancient stone archway, the poppy fields began to change again. Not in color, not in scent, but in depth. The traveler noticed that the flowers here seemed to move more slowly, as if even time had grown more careful in this part of the valley. The air felt thicker, but in a comforting way, like a soft blanket being gently placed over the world. Each step forward felt quieter than the last. The poppies no longer rustled. They simply swayed, almost imperceptibly, as though responding to thoughts rather than wind. The traveler continued forward, and soon the horizon began to open. The endless red fields gradually gave way to stretches of pale grass, silver soil, and scattered glowing stones that marked an unseen path. The River Lethe was no longer visible here, but its presence still lingered, not in sight, but in feeling. A calmness that remained in the air, like a memory of peace that never fully fades. Ahead, the mountain rose more clearly now. It was no ordinary mountain. From afar, it had seemed smooth and cloud-wrapped, but as the traveler drew closer, details slowly emerged. Gentle slopes covered in pale stone, veined the faint light running through its surface like sleeping rivers. Clouds that did not move away, but instead rested against it, as if they belonged there. The travelers stopped for a moment. The mountain did not feel distant anymore. It felt aware. Not alive in a loud or moving way, but in a quiet, ancient sense of presence, as though it had been waiting longer than memory itself. A soft wind passed through the valley. It carried the faintest sound. Not a voice, not music, but something between the two. A deep, low hum that seemed to come from inside the earth itself. The traveler felt it in their chest more than they heard it. A vibration of stillness, of deep sleep. They continued walking. The ground beneath them gradually shifted from soft meadow to smooth stone pathways. The poppy fields now lay far behind, like a red ocean at rest. In front, the landscape became more structured. Stone pillars appeared along the path, not carved in any modern style, but shaped as if formed by time itself. Some leaned slightly, some were perfectly upright. All of them carried faint markings that seemed to glow when looked at directly, but faded when stared out too long. The traveler did not try to read them. Some things, the valley seemed to suggest, were meant to be felt rather than understood.
As the traveler walked between the pillars, the air grew noticeably cooler. Not cold, just refreshingly still. The kind of stillness that invites slow breathing. In and out. In and out. The mountain now filled the entire horizon. Its base was enormous, spreading far wider than expected. It did not rise sharply like ordinary peaks. Instead, it unfolded gradually, as though the earth itself was settling into sleep. A faint glow appeared near its lower slopes, soft blues and silvers, flickering like distant lanterns. The traveler moved closer, and soon they realized what they were seeing. Not lanterns, not fire, but openings, small glowing caves embedded into the mountainside. Some were narrow, some wide, some shaped like arches, all of them emitting a faint, peaceful light. The traveler paused. This must be it, the beginning of the cave of sleep. But something about it suggested that there was not just one cave, there were many, as if the entire mountain was woven with hidden passages, each one leading deeper into rest. The traveler stepped forward slowly. The air near the mountain felt different, heavier with silence, yet easier to breathe. The sound of footsteps softened further as the ground shifted from stone path to fine dust-like gravel that made no noise at all. Even the wind here seemed to hesitate before moving, as if respecting something sacred. The traveler looked up. The mountain towered above them now, but instead of feeling intimidating, it felt welcoming, like a giant resting creature breathing slowly in eternal sleep. The faint glow from the caves reflected off the stone surface, creating shifting patterns of blue and silver light. They looked almost like dreams moving across a sleeping face. The traveler walked closer to the base, and then they saw something unexpected. Figures, not spirits this time, but shapes carved into the stone itself. Depictions of people lying down, of stars descending, of rivers flowing into still water, of poppies blooming endlessly beneath sleeping skies. It was as if the mountain recorded not events, but states of rest. The traveler reached out and touched the stone. It was warm, not from heat, but from something deeper, something like memory, something like calm. A faint vibration passed through their hand, slow, steady, like a heartbeat that belonged to the mountain itself. The traveler stepped back, and in that moment a realization settled gently in their mind. This was not a place one simply entered. It was a place one slowly became part of. The caves were not openings in stone. They were invitations, soft ones,
Quiet ones, waiting for those ready to let go of wakefulness. A soft glow appeared nearby. One of the cave entrances slowly brightened as the traveler approached. Not brighter in intensity, but clearer, as if acknowledging presence. The traveler hesitated. For the first time, the journey felt like it was reaching a threshold. Behind them lay the valley, the river, the poppies, the spirits, everything leading here. Ahead lay the unknown heart of Hypnosis domain. The traveler took a slow breath. The air itself seemed to slow with them. Then gently, they stepped forward toward the glowing entrance, toward the cave of sleep. And somewhere deep within the mountain, something stirred. Not wake, but aware, waiting, patient as eternity. The home of Hypnos was near. The travelers stood at the mouth of the glowing cave. Behind them, the valley of poppies stretched endlessly under the silver moon. Ahead, the mountain opened like a quiet invitation. The entrance was not dark as one might expect. Instead, it glowed softly with a deep, calming blue light. Not bright, not harsh, just enough to see, just enough to feel safe. The traveler stepped forward, and the moment they crossed the threshold, the world outside seemed to soften. The sounds of the valley faded instantly. The whispering wind, the distant river, even the faint rustle of poppies, all of it dissolved into silence. Not empty silence, but complete silence, a silence that felt alive. The cave walls were smooth, carved not by tools but by time and something gentler. They shimmered faintly, as if light itself had seeped into the stone over countless ages. The traveler's footsteps made no sound. Even breathing felt quieter here. The air was cool, but not cold. It carried a faint scent, something like rain resting on warm earth. The passage ahead curved gently downward, not steep, not sudden, just a slow descent, as if the mountain was not leading the traveler deeper, but helping them sink lower into calmness. As they walked, soft light pulsed along the walls. It moved like slow breathing, in and out, in and out. The traveler placed a hand against the stone. It was warm again, alive with that same strange stillness. The deeper they went, the more the cave seemed to respond. The light brightened slightly when they moved forward, dimmed gently when they paused, as though the cave itself was aware of their rhythm. The traveler continued. After some time, the passage opened into a wider chamber. The ceiling rose high above, disappearing into soft darkness. But instead of feeling empty,
The space felt vast and comforting, like a cathedral built for sleep rather than worship. Floating lights drifted through the chamber, tiny spheres of pale blue and gold. They moved slowly in gentle circles, never colliding, never rushing. The traveler watched in quiet awe. One of the lights drifted closer. It paused near the traveler's hand, and in that moment, a feeling passed through them. A memory of falling asleep as a child. Warm blankets, soft voices outside the room, the safety of not needing to be anywhere else. The light drifted away again. The feeling remained. The traveler walked further into the chamber. Stone pillars rose from the ground, naturally formed yet perfectly shaped. Each pillar carried faint carvings, simple patterns of waves, stars, enclosed eyes. Symbols of rest, symbols of surrender. The air grew even more peaceful. So peaceful that thoughts began to slow, not disappear,
Just soften, like ripples fading on still water. The traveler noticed something unusual. Time was becoming harder to feel. Moments stretched gently, then collapsed softly. There was no urgency here, only continuation, only presence. Ahead, another passage opened. This one was narrower, but brighter. The light inside it was different, warmer, almost golden. The traveler approached it carefully. As they stepped inside, the walls changed again. They were no longer stone alone. They shimmered with faint images, scenes appearing and fading like dreams. A field under morning sunlight, a person lying beneath a tree, rain falling on a quiet roof, a candle burning beside an open book. Each image lasted only a moment before dissolving into light. The traveler realized something. These were not memories of one person. They were fragments of many lives, shared experiences of rest, of peace, of letting go. The passage eventually opened into a second chamber. This one was larger, and at its center stood something unexpected. A pool, still and perfectly smooth. But unlike the River Lethe outside, this water did not flow. It simply reflected. The ceiling above, the lights around it, and the traveler standing at its edge. Yet the reflection was slightly different. Calmer, slower, as if showing not what was, but what could be. The traveler knelt beside it. The surface did not ripple. Instead, it accepted their presence like a mirror made of dreams. For a long moment, the traveler simply watched. No thoughts, no questions, just stillness. Then faintly, a sound echoed through the chamber. Not footsteps, not wind, but breathing. Slow, deep, ancient. The traveler turned. Beyond the chamber, the passage continued deeper into the mountain. And from that deeper darkness, a presence could be felt. Not frightening, not aggressive, but undeniably aware, as if something had been waiting for a very long time. The traveler rose slowly. The pool's surface shimmered once, then became still again.
The air felt heavier now, not in weight, but in meaning. They were close, closer than ever before. The cave of sleep was no longer a destination. It was becoming a reality around them. Step by step, breath by breath, the traveler moved toward the next passage, and deeper within the mountain, something ancient waited. The presence of Hypnos grew nearer. The traveler stepped away from the still pool and followed the deeper passage into the mountain. The golden light from the previous chamber faded behind them, slowly swallowed by the soft blue glow ahead. Here, the cave no longer felt like a place carved through stone. It felt like something grown, like a living dream shaped into structure. The walls were smoother now, almost fluid in appearance. Light drifted across them in slow waves, as if the mountain itself was breathing through its skin. The traveler walked carefully, not because of fear, but because instinctively everything here encouraged slowness. Even thought itself seemed to move more gently. The passage widened gradually, opening into a vast hall. This was unlike anything seen before. The ceiling disappeared into endless darkness, yet stars shimmered faintly above, as if the sky itself had been brought inside the mountain. Columns of pale light descended from above, connecting ceiling to floor like soft pillars of moonlight. And in the center of the hall, there was a shape. At first, it was unclear. Not solid, not fully defined. More like a presence taking form only when perceived. The traveler stopped. The air changed. It became deeper, heavier with silence, but also warmer, like entering a room where a fire had just been gently extinguished. The shape slowly became clearer. A reclining figure, lying not on stone or throne, but on something that resembled a cloud made of stillness itself. The traveler could not see sharp details, only impressions, soft outlines, a face that suggested calm beyond understanding, closed eyes, a posture that held absolute peace. This was Hypnos, the god of sleep. The traveler did not move forward. Something within them understood that approaching was not about distance, it was about readiness. The entire hall seemed to respond to the presence. The drifting lights slowed. The air softened further. Even the faint breathing of the mountain became more synchronized. In and out. In and out. A voice did not speak aloud, yet the traveler heard it clearly. Not through ears, but through feeling. Why have you come? The traveler hesitated. The question was not demanding. It was simply present, like a gentle invitation to be honest. The traveler looked at the reclining figure. I came to understand sleep. A pause. A long, soft silence followed. Then the presence responded again. Sleep is not something to understand. It is something to allow.
The words did not feel like instruction. They felt like release. The traveler lowered their gaze slightly. Around them, the hall seemed to expand even further, as if the cave was making space for stillness itself. The figure of Hypnos remained unmoving, yet everything in the room felt aware of him. Not active awareness, but eternal awareness, like the ocean beneath still water. The traveler felt something unusual. Their thoughts were slowing, not fading, just loosening their grip. Worries that had followed them for years felt distant here, not erased, just less important. The presence spoke again. Every traveler arrives carrying something. The traveler nodded slightly. The voice continued. Some carry questions. Some carry memories. Some carry exhaustion. And some carry nothing but the need to stop. The traveler did not answer immediately, because all of those felt true in different ways. The hall remained silent, yet the silence was not empty. It was full of comfort, full of understanding, full of rest that had existed long before the traveler arrived. Slowly, the figure shifted, not moving like a waking body, but like a change in dream imagery, subtle, soft. The sense of presence deepened, and the traveler realized something. Hypnos was not only here, he was everywhere within the cave, in the walls, in the light, in the air itself, in the slowing of thought, in the gentle release of tension that the traveler felt without noticing when it began. The god did not need to stand, or speak loudly, or act. His existence was the atmosphere. The traveler took a slow breath, and as they exhaled, a weight they had not known they were carrying seemed to loosen slightly. Not disappear, just loosen. The presence spoke once more. "Do you wish to continue deeper?" The question was simple, but it felt important, not as a choice of direction, but as a choice of state. The traveler looked around the hall, at the drifting lights, at the still figure, at the endless calm that seemed to hold everything together. Then softly they replied, "I think I am already resting."
A faint warmth spread through the space. Not light, not sound, but acceptance. The figure of Hypnos remained still, yet the feeling in the hall shifted, as if that answer had always been expected. The passage behind the traveler did not close, but it no longer felt necessary. The journey had changed. It was no longer about reaching a place. It was about sinking into it. Deeper, slower, gentler. The traveler stood in the presence of Hypnos, and for the first time since the journey began, there was nothing left to chase, only rest waiting to be allowed. And somewhere in the far edges of awareness, the cave of sleep continued breathing, patient, infinite, kind.
The traveler remained in the vast inner sanctum, where silence felt alive, and time no longer behaved as it once did. Hypnos still lay in his quiet, eternal rest, yet his presence had begun to feel less like a figure and more like a state of being spread throughout everything. The air itself seemed to hold thought more gently now. The traveler turned slowly. A new passage had appeared behind them. It had not been there moments before. Or perhaps it had always been there, waiting to be noticed only when the mind became still enough. The entrance glowed with a soft, shifting light, neither blue nor gold, but something between both, a color that felt more like a feeling than a sight. Without urgency, the traveler stepped forward. The moment they entered, the atmosphere changed again. The cave widened into something far more extraordinary, a hall that seemed infinite in all directions, not just length or width, but depth. It felt as if space itself had softened, like reality was no longer rigid here. Floating pathways of light stretched across the hall, forming bridges that led nowhere and everywhere at once. Above, below, and around them drifted countless images, dreams, not yet formed, not yet finished, but existing in a delicate, unfinished state. The traveler watched in awe. One image showed a child running through a field of flowers that had no end. Another showed a sailor sailing across a sea made of clouds. Another showed an old library where books wrote themselves as they were read. Each dream shimmered briefly before dissolving into mist, only to reform into something new. A voice, gentle and layered, like many whispers speaking as one, filled the space.
Here, dreams are shaped before they are seen. The traveler turned. Hypnos was not visible here as a single form. Instead, his presence seemed to echo through everything, in the floating images, in the slow movement of light, in the stillness between transformations. The traveler stepped on to one of the glowing pathways. It did not feel solid, yet it supported them as if it understood intention. As they moved forward, the dreams around them began to respond. Some brightened, some slowed, some shifted slightly, as if acknowledging observation. The traveler reached out cautiously toward a drifting image. It showed a quiet room at night, a person sleeping peacefully beneath a window where rain gently fell. As the traveler's hand approached, the image reacted, not by breaking, but by deepening. The rain became softer, the light became warmer, the entire scene grew calmer. Then it faded. A new dream formed in its place. The voice returned. Every mind that sleeps sends ripples here. The traveler listened cheerfully. Not all dreams are remembered, the voice continued, but all dreams are shaped. The hall seemed to breathe soundly. Dreams flowed like currents through unseen channels. The traveler noticed that some dreams drifted upward more brightly than others. Some sank into deeper layers of the hall. Some stayed close, gently orbiting like sleeping stars. Curiosity led the traveler further along the luminous path.
The deeper they went, the more the dreams changed. They became quieter, more abstract, less like stories and more like sensations. A feeling of warmth, a sense of safety, the memory of laughter, the comfort of being understood. The traveler began to understand something without it being explained. Dreams were not just images, they were emotional echoes, fragments of feeling given form. The path eventually led to a wide opening in the hall. At its center floated a vast sphere of light. It was enormous, slowly rotating, its surface constantly shifting with countless dream fragments. The traveler stopped. The sphere seemed to contain more than could be imagined. Entire worlds flickered within it. Not fixed worlds, but possibilities. The voice spoke again, softer now. This is the loom of dreams. The traveler whispered, "It creates all dreams?" A pause. Then the answer came. "It reflects them." The distinction felt important. The sphere was not a factory. It was a mirror, a place where inner states became visible. The traveler watched as the sphere shifted. One section glowed warmly, showing peaceful dreams of rest and comfort. Another flickered with chaotic motion, thoughts unresolved, emotions unsettled. Yet nothing was judged, nothing was corrected. Everything simply existed, flowing through transformation. The traveler felt a strange calmness watching it, not because everything was perfect, but because everything was allowed. The path slowly curved away from the sphere.
And as the traveler walked, the dreams around them began to thin. The hall grew quieter, more focused, less overwhelming. Eventually, another threshold appeared ahead, a curtain of soft mist. Behind it, only darkness and gentle light. The traveler hesitated. The voice of Hypnos spoke once more. Beyond this, there are no dreams to observe. Only presence. Only rest. The traveler stood still for a long moment, then slowly stepped forward. The mist parted without resistance, and the final layer of the cave of sleep began to reveal itself, not as a place, but as a feeling that had always been waiting. A feeling deeper than dreams, deeper than thought, the beginning of true sleep.
The mist parted without sound. There was no resistance, no shift of pressure, only a soft unveiling, as if the cave itself had been waiting to reveal this final layer when the traveler was ready to perceive it. Beyond the mist, there was no grand chamber, no glowing architecture, no shifting dream sphere. Instead, there was simplicity, an endless, quiet expanse of soft light. Not white, not gold, something more like stillness made visible. The traveler stepped forward slowly, and immediately the sense of walking began to fade. It was not that their body disappeared, but that the need to move with effort began to dissolve. Each step felt lighter than the last, until movement became almost unnecessary, as if the space itself carried them gently forward. The traveler looked around. There were no walls now, no ceiling, no floor. Yet there was no feeling of falling, only floating awareness, like being held by something invisible in kind. Far behind them, the shapes of dreams and the vast halls of Hypnos no longer appeared. Not because they vanished, but because they were no longer needed in this place. Here, everything had already softened into its most peaceful form. The traveler took a slow breath and noticed something strange. Even thoughts had become distant. Not gone, just quiet, like echoes at the edge of a vast valley. A presence remained, not spoken, not seen, but deeply felt. Hypnos. Not as a figure, not as a form, but as the essence of this space itself. The traveler did not try to speak. Instead, a feeling rose naturally within them, a quiet understanding that this was not an ending, nor a destination, but a return. The presence responded, not with words, but with acceptance. A gentle warmth spread through everything, like a hand resting lightly on the world, reminding it that it was safe to rest. The traveler felt something loosen inside them, not something physical, something deeper. A weight they had carried for so long that they had forgotten it was there. It did not break away, it simply dissolved, like mist meeting morning light. Time no longer seemed to exist in a linear way. There was no past moving behind them, no future waiting ahead. Only the present, endless, soft, complete. The traveler realized they were no longer traveling in any ordinary sense. They were simply being held by the space, by the presence, by the quiet intelligence of rest itself. A final thought rose within them, not urgent, not questioning, just gentle. So this is sleep. The answer did not come as language. It came as experience. A deepening calm. A softening of everything that remained tense. A feeling of being exactly where nothing was required anymore. The traveler's awareness began to slow further, like a river finally reaching the sea and no longer needing to flow. The edges of perception softened. The sense of being separate from the space grew thinner, until even that distinction faded. There was no traveler now, no cave, no journey, only rest. And somewhere within that rest, Hypnos remained, not watching, not controlling, simply existing as the quiet foundation beneath all peaceful sleep. A final sensation passed through everything, like a lullaby without sound, like a promise without words, that nothing here would ever demand waking. The last trace of thought dissolved gently, not into darkness, but into comfort.
and the cave of sleep continued its eternal rhythm. In and out, in and out, and everything was still. End of journey.